The great ship of the Krazok moved silently through the darkness of space. Inside, Commander Vexnar stood tall, his scaled skin changing colors slightly as he looked at the star map. His yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the small blue planet on the screen. Vexnar was the greatest hunter the Krazok had ever known. For 200 years he had traveled to different worlds and hunted the most dangerous creatures in the universe. The walls of his private room were covered with trophies, claws, teeth, and strange body parts from creatures most Krazok had only heard about in stories. "Commander," said Sub-Commander Drez as he entered the control room, "the scouts have returned from the third planet." Vexnar turned slowly. He towered over Drez, his muscular body covered in battle scars that he displayed proudly. "What did they find?" "A species called humans," Drez said, touching a panel on the wall. An image appeared, showing strange creatures walking on two legs. They had no claws, no sharp teeth, and their skin looked soft and easy to tear. "They appear very weak, Commander." Vexnar made a sound of disappointment. The Krazok were feared across 20 galaxies. They had evolved over millions of years to become perfect hunters. Their skin could change color to blend with any background. Their eyes could see in complete darkness. Their sense of smell could detect prey from miles away. And their strength was so great they could tear apart metal with their bare hands. Next to such power, these humans looked like nothing. They would provide no challenge, no honor in the hunt. "Not worth our time," Vexnar said, turning away. "Set course for the Draxon system. I heard the fire beast there might provide some sport." "Wait, Commander," Drez said quickly. "There is something strange about these humans." He touched more controls, and new images appeared. They have no natural weapons, yet they control their entire planet. They have no speed, yet they travel quickly in machines they built. They have no strength, yet they move mountains with tools they created. Vexnar looked more closely at the images. He saw humans in different places, some in large cities with tall buildings, others in small settlements surrounded by fields of plants. He saw them traveling in ground vehicles and flying machines. None of it was impressive by Krazok standards, but it was unusual for such a physically weak species. "How do they defend themselves?" Vexnar asked. "They fight each other constantly," Drez replied. "They have weapons that fire small metal objects at high speed. They have bombs that can destroy large areas. Nothing that could harm our ships, of course." Vexnar touched one of the images, enlarging it to show a human male in some kind of uniform, carrying a weapon. "They look so soft," he said. "So breakable." "Yes, Commander. But they have survived on their planet despite many stronger predators. They don't adapt their bodies to their environment like most species. Instead, they change their environment to suit their needs." This caught Vexnar's interest. In all his years of hunting across the stars, he had never encountered a species like this. Most creatures evolved to become stronger, faster, or better hidden. These humans had taken a different path. "Perhaps there is something here worthy of study," Vexnar said slowly. "If not worthy of the hunt, at least worthy of observation." "There's more," Drez continued. "The scout team reports that these humans react differently to threats. Most species we encounter either fight or run when faced with danger. Humans do something else. They work together, they plan, they use tools in new ways." Now Vexnar was truly interested. The greatest joy for a Krazok hunter was finding prey that could think, that could challenge the hunter's skills. If these humans had unusual ways of responding to threats, they might provide some entertainment after all. "Set course for this Earth," Vexnar ordered. "I will see these strange creatures for myself." The great ship changed direction, its engines glowing briefly before it accelerated toward the solar system. Vexnar returned to his private room and looked at his collection of trophies. Would he soon add human bones to his display? Or would these odd creatures surprise him in some way? 3 days later, the Krazok ship entered Earth's solar system. They passed the red planet and approached the blue one carefully, using their advanced technology to remain hidden. "Send down a scouting party," Vexnar ordered. "I want to observe these humans up close." Scout leader Krell led the team to Earth's surface. They landed their small ship in a forest far from human settlements. The ship immediately became invisible once it touched the ground. "Activate personal cloaking," Krell ordered, and the 5 scouts disappeared from sight. Their advanced technology bent light around them, making them completely invisible to human eyes. The scouts moved silently through the forest until they reached the edge of a small town. They watched as humans went about their daily lives, completely unaware they were being observed. "Such primitive creatures," said Scout Vren with disgust. "Look how slowly they move. Listen to how loudly they breathe. I could catch one with my eyes closed." "Remember why we're here," Krell warned. "Commander Vexnar wants information, not trophies. Not yet." For 3 days, the scouts observed the humans. They watched a man named Frank Bennett hunt deer in the forest, using only a simple weapon and his knowledge of the animal's habits. They observed a woman called Susan Wright, teaching young humans about their world. They studied people working together to build a new structure at the edge of town. "These creatures are strange," Krell reported to Commander Vexnar. "They are physically weak, but they use tools for everything. They work together in ways we don't understand. They seem to care for the weakest members of their group instead of letting them die." Vexnar listened with growing interest. "Continue observation," he ordered. "I want to know how they respond to a threat." The next day, Krell's team deliberately damaged a water system that supplied the town. They expected panic and confusion. Instead, they watched as the humans quickly organized repairs. A man named Greg Wilson seemed to take charge, directing others calmly. Within hours, the damage was fixed. "They adapt quickly," Krell reported. "They solve problems in creative ways." Vexnar had heard enough. "Return to the ship," he ordered. "I've made my decision." When the scout team returned, Vexnar gathered his hunters. 50 of the strongest, most skilled Krazok warriors stood before him, eager for the hunt. "We have found something unusual on this planet," Vexnar told them. "These humans are physically weak, but they have other strengths we don't fully understand yet. They will make interesting prey." The hunters growled with excitement. They had traveled far and waited long for a new challenge. "Prepare your weapons," Vexnar ordered. "Tomorrow we hunt humans." The small town of Pine Ridge sat quietly under the night sky. Most of its 3,000 residents were asleep, unaware of the danger that approached from above. 5 Krazok hunting pods descended silently, their cloaking technology making them invisible to human eyes and instruments. Hunt Master Grex led the first hunting party. He had served under Commander Vexnar for 30 years and had killed creatures on 100 different worlds. Humans would be just another trophy for his collection. "Remember," Grex told his 4 hunters as they prepared to leave their pod, "Commander Vexnar wants live specimens. Capture, don't kill." The hunters nodded. They activated their personal cloaking devices and stepped out into the cool night air. Their bodies, over 7 feet tall and covered in tough, scaly skin, moved with surprising grace for their size. "The scouting report suggests the leader of this settlement is in that building," Grex said, pointing to a small structure with the words "Sheriff's Office" on the front. "We'll capture him first." Inside the office, Sheriff Dan Miller was working late. At 55 years old, Dan had been sheriff of Pine Ridge for 20 years. Nothing much happened in this small town, but tonight he felt uneasy for no reason. He could explain. The door to his office opened, but Dan saw no one enter. He reached for his gun but felt himself lifted from his chair by invisible hands. Something strong held him as a strange-smelling cloth was pressed against his face. Dan struggled briefly before losing consciousness. Grex looked down at the unconscious human. "Too easy," he said with disappointment. "Take him back to the pod for study." 2 hunters carried the sheriff away while Grex and the others continued their mission. "Now we'll capture some ordinary humans for comparison," Grex ordered. They moved through the sleeping town, entering homes and taking people from their beds. A middle-aged woman named Betty Young, a young man called Sam Cooper, a doctor named Edward Brown. All were taken quickly and quietly with no chance to resist. But when they entered the home of Deputy Laura Collins, things went wrong. Laura's dog, a large German shepherd named Rex, sensed the invisible intruders. He began barking furiously, waking Laura from sleep. As a strange hand reached for her, Laura rolled out of bed and grabbed her gun from the nightstand. "Who's there?" she called out, pointing her weapon at what seemed like empty space. Grex was surprised. No human should be able to detect them. He signaled to his hunters to freeze in place. Laura fired a warning shot into the ceiling. "I know someone's here, show yourself." The noise woke neighbors. Lights came on in nearby houses. People began to notice that something strange was happening in their town. "Take her quickly," Grex ordered. 2 hunters rushed forward. Laura fired at the sound of movement. By pure luck, her bullet hit a control device on one hunter's belt. There was a flash of light, and suddenly the hunter became partially visible, a flickering, distorted shape that looked nothing like a human. Laura screamed but kept firing. The wounded hunter retreated, and Grex decided they had lost the advantage of surprise. "Back to the pods," he ordered. "We have enough specimens for now." As the hunters retreated with their captives, the town of Pine Ridge came fully awake. People emerged from their homes calling for the sheriff, not knowing he had been taken. Deputy Laura ran to the sheriff's office, still shaking from her encounter. "Something attacked me in my home," she told Officer Steve Harris, who was on night duty. "Something invisible. And then it wasn't invisible anymore, it was some kind of monster." Steve might have thought Laura was dreaming, but other people started calling in. Betty Young's husband reported she was missing. Sam Cooper's roommate said Sam had vanished from a locked apartment. Dr. Brown's wife was hysterical, saying something had taken her husband. By morning, the whole town knew something terrible had happened. Laura took charge as the sheriff was nowhere to be found. She organized search parties and called for help from nearby towns. Whatever took these people might still be out there, she warned. "Stay in groups. Keep your eyes and ears open for anything unusual." Back on the Krazok ship, Commander Vexnar examined the human captives with interest. They were kept in separate cells, monitored by advanced equipment that recorded their every reaction. "This one is the leader," Grex said, pointing to Sheriff Dan Miller, who was now awake and pacing his cell. "He shows no fear, only anger." Vexnar watched as Dan tested the walls of his cell, looked for weaknesses in the door, and called out to see if anyone else was nearby. The human showed no panic, only a methodical approach to his situation. "Interesting," Vexnar said. "What? About the others?" The female human, Betty Young, was singing quietly to herself, something the Krazok found strange. The young male, Sam Cooper, had tried to fight when he awoke, injuring himself against the unbreakable walls. The doctor, Edward Brown, was carefully observing everything about his cell, making notes using a small object he had hidden in his shoe. "They all respond differently," Grex noted. "Not like other species we've hunted." Vexnar nodded. "Begin the tests. I want to know how they react to various stimuli." Over the next day, the Krazok subjected their captives to tests. They changed the temperature in the cells from very hot to very cold. They played loud, disturbing sounds. They projected images of fearsome creatures. Through it all, they monitored the humans' physical responses. Their heart rates increased, showing fear, reported the Krazok scientist Malk. But their behavior doesn't match. They control their fear in ways we haven't seen before. Meanwhile, on Earth, Deputy Laura had discovered something important. The bullet she fired had damaged an alien device, which was now in the hands of local science teacher Gary Nelson. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Gary told her, examining the damaged device. "This isn't human technology." "Are you saying it's alien?" Laura asked, finding it hard to believe despite what she had seen. "I'm saying we need to get this to people who know more than I do," Gary replied, "and we need to do it fast." Laura made some calls. Within hours, military vehicles were arriving in Pine Ridge. Men and women in uniform set up equipment around the town. Among them was Major Peter Lane, who took the alien device from Gary. "You did the right thing calling us," Major Lane told Laura. "We've had reports of similar incidents in other towns. Whatever took your people, we're going to find them." In space, Commander Vexnar prepared for the next phase of the hunt. "The capture was too easy," he told his hunters. "Now we'll give them a real challenge. Release the captives on Hunting Ground 6. Hunting Ground 6 was a large enclosed environment on the Krazok ship, designed to recreate various terrains for hunting practice. For this hunt, it had been set up to look like an earth forest. Let's see how these humans survive when they know they're being hunted, Vexnar said, his yellow eyes gleaming with anticipation. Then we'll know if they're worthy prey. Sheriff Dan Miller woke up in a forest. At first he thought he was back in Pine Ridge, but something felt wrong. The air smelled different. The light coming through the trees had a strange color, and when he looked up, he saw no sky, just a high ceiling made of some metal-like material. "Betty? Sam? Dr. Brown?" he called out. There was no answer at first, then he heard someone moving through the trees. Dr. Edward Brown appeared, looking tired but alert. "Sheriff? Is that you?" The two men hugged briefly, relieved to see a familiar face. "Where are we?" Dr. Brown asked, looking around at the strange forest. "Some kind of fake environment," Dan said. "Like a zoo exhibit. Have you seen the others?" Before Dr. Brown could answer, Betty Young stepped into view. She was carrying a sharp stick and had torn strips of cloth from her nightgown to wrap around her hands. "There you are," she said. "I've been looking for you. Sam is setting up a camp about half a mile that way." She pointed deeper into the forest. Dan was impressed by how calm they all seemed. "Does anyone remember what happened? How we got here?" They shared their memories, being taken from their homes by invisible creatures, waking up in strange cells, and then being moved to this forest. None of them had seen their captors clearly. "We need to find water and food, then figure out where we are and how to escape," Dan said. They walked to the camp Sam Cooper had started. The young man had already built a simple shelter using fallen branches and was working on a fire. "Good to see you all," Sam said. "I think we're on some kind of spaceship. When they moved me here, I got a quick look through a window. I saw stars and what looked like Earth in the distance." The four humans sat together, planning what to do next. None of them panicked. None of them gave up hope. Instead, they worked, together, using each person's skills. "I'll set traps for food," Sam said. He had learned hunting from his father. "I'll look for water and plants we might be able to eat," Betty offered. She was an avid gardener. "I'll keep track of our surroundings and try to map this place," Dan said. "And I'll watch for any signs of our captors and set up a medical area," Dr. Brown added. In the control room of the Krazok ship, Commander Vexnar watched the humans with growing interest. Most species, when placed in Hunting Ground 6, either hid in fear or ran in panic. These humans were doing something different. They were working together, making plans, creating tools from their environment. "Fascinating," Vexnar said. "They adapt so quickly. Shall we begin the hunt now?" asked Huntmaster Grex, eager for action. "Not yet," Vexnar replied. "Let's see what they do next. Add some challenges to their environment." On Vexnar's order, the Krazok controllers made changes to Hunting Ground 6. The temperature dropped. Suddenly, rain began to fall. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, designed to create fear. The humans noticed the changes right away. "This confirms we're in an artificial environment," Dr. Brown said as they huddled in their shelter, now reinforced to keep out the rain. "Someone is watching us, testing us. Then let's show them what humans can do," Dan said firmly. Despite the cold and rain, they continued improving their camp. Sam managed to catch a small animal-like creature in one of his traps. It looked like a rabbit but had blue fur. After careful examination, Dr. Brown declared it probably safe to eat. Betty found a stream that hadn't been there before and tested the water. "It seems clean," she said after taking a careful sip. They built a better fire, cooked the strange animal, and kept working on their plans to explore their surroundings and find a way out. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Deputy Laura Collins stood in a large military tent that had been set up in the center of Pine Ridge. Maps covered the walls. Computers hummed. Soldiers and scientists moved around with purpose. Major Peter Lane showed Laura a satellite image. "We've detected an unknown object in orbit around Earth," he said. "It's large and doesn't match any known satellite or space debris." "You think that's where they took our people?" Laura asked. "It's our best guess," Major Lane replied. We've also collected reports of similar abductions from 5 other towns across the country. Always the same pattern. Invisible intruders taking people at night. A scientist named Dr. Linda Ryan joined them, holding the damaged alien device that Laura had shot. "We've made progress understanding this technology," Dr. Ryan said. "It seems to bend light around the wearer, creating what we'd call an invisibility cloak. The power source is like nothing we've seen before, but we think we can create a countermeasure." "How long will that take?" Laura asked. "Days, maybe weeks," Dr. Ryan admitted. "But there's something else. Based on the materials and design, whoever made this is far more advanced than us. If they wanted to harm us on a large scale, they could have done it already." "So why are they taking people?" Laura wondered. "That's what we need to find out," Major Lane said. "And we need to be prepared if they come back." On the Krazok ship, Commander Vexnar made a decision. "The humans have shown unexpected resilience," he told his hunters. "Now it's time to see how they face a direct challenge. Prepare for the hunt." 5 Krazok hunters, including Grex, entered Hunting Ground 6. They wore their cloaking devices, making them invisible. They carried non-lethal weapons. The hunt was for sport and study, not to kill. Inside the artificial forest, Dan and the others were ready. They had noticed small signs of intruders, footprints appearing in mud with no one visible, branches moving against the wind. "They're here," Dan whispered to the group. "Remember the plan." The humans had prepared simple weapons, spears made from branches, slings made from torn cloth, traps hidden under leaves. They had studied their environment and used it to their advantage. As the invisible hunters approached, Sam threw a handful of dirt into the air. It stuck to the outline of a Krazok, revealing its position. "There!" Sam shouted, throwing his spear. The spear hit the hunter's cloaking device. With a spark and a flicker, the device failed, revealing the Krazok's true form. Tall, reptilian, with muscles rippling under scaled skin. The humans gasped but didn't run. Instead, they stood their ground, weapons ready. The Krazok hunter, now visible, looked surprised. Then it made a sound that might have been laughter. "Worthy prey at last," it said in a deep, rumbling voice that somehow turned into English words the humans could understand. From his control room, Commander Vexnar watched with growing excitement. For the first time in many years, he felt the thrill of a real challenge. "The hunt has truly begun," he said. The revealed Krazok hunter stood tall before the 4 humans, its yellow eyes studying them with new respect. For a moment, no one moved. Then the hunter raised a clawed hand and spoke again. "I am Grex, hunt master of the Krazok. You have earned the right to know who hunts you." Sheriff Dan stepped forward, keeping his makeshift spear ready. "I'm Sheriff Dan Miller. Why did you take us from our homes?" "To hunt you," Grex said simply. "The Krazok travel the stars, seeking worthy prey. Most species run or hide when faced with superior strength. You humans, you fight back in unexpected ways." Before Dan could respond, Betty Young threw a net made from vines. It landed on Grex, surprising him. Sam and Dr. Brown rushed forward with their spears while Dan tackled the alien's legs. Despite the Krazok's superior strength, the coordinated attack caught him off guard. The other 4 hunters, still invisible, moved to help their leader. But the humans had prepared the ground with traps. One hunter stepped into a pit covered with leaves and fell. Another triggered a tripwire that released a heavy log, striking the hunter's cloaking device and revealing him. In the control room, Commander Vexnar watched with amazement. "They planned for invisible enemies," he said. "They used their environment against technologically superior opponents." On Earth, the military operation was growing. The damaged Krazok device had provided valuable information. Scientists working day and night had created prototype sensors that could detect the unique energy signature of the alien cloaking technology. Deputy Laura Collins tested one of these sensors, a small device that looked like a pair of glasses. When she put them on, she could see faint outlines where the cloaking technology was active. "It works," she told Major Lane. "Not perfectly, but it works." "Good," Major Lane replied. We're distributing these to military units around the world. If these aliens come back, we'll be ready. Dr. Linda Ryan entered the tent with new information. We've analyzed the metal from the alien device, she said. It contains elements not found on Earth. But more importantly, we've figured out how their translation technology works. If we encounter them again, we should be able to communicate. That's assuming they want to talk, Laura said. We need to be prepared either way, Major Lane agreed. Our satellite tracking suggests their ship is still in orbit. They haven't left. Back in Hunting Ground 6, the humans had managed to capture 2 Krezok hunters, including Grex. They tied them with strong vines and kept their damaged cloaking devices as trophies. 3 more are still out there, Dan reminded the group as they secured their prisoners in their camp. Grex watched the humans with growing interest. Instead of killing their captives, they were keeping them alive. Instead of running from the remaining hunters, they were preparing defenses. Why don't you kill us? Grex asked Dan. That's not what humans do, Dan replied. We're not murderers, we just want to go home. Fascinating, Grex said. Most species would take revenge. Dr. Brown was examining the alien technology they had captured. These devices are incredible, he said. The power source alone could revolutionize Earth's energy production. Focus, Doc, Sam reminded him. We need to figure out how to get off this ship and back to Earth. Betty had been studying the artificial environment. I found the edges, she reported. There are what look like doors hidden in the rock formations to the north and east. Good work, Dan said. Now we need to figure out how to open them, and what's beyond. In the control room, Commander Vexnar made a decision. This has gone beyond a simple hunt, he told his officers. These humans have captured Krezok warriors, something no other species has done in our 1,000 years of hunting. Should we send more hunters? Asked Subcommander Drez. No, Vexnar said. I will go myself. But first I want to speak with them. Vexnar activated the communication system. His voice boomed throughout Hunting Ground 6. Humans of Earth, he said. I am Commander Vexnar of the Krezok. You have proven yourselves worthy opponents. I offer you a choice. Continue the hunt or speak with me directly. The humans looked at each other. It could be a trap, Sam warned. Or it could be our chance to negotiate, Dan said. Dr. Brown, what do you think? I think we should talk, the doctor replied. We've shown we can fight. Now let's see if we can reason with them. Dan looked up at the ceiling, speaking loudly. We'll talk, but we keep our weapons and our prisoners as insurance. Agreed, Vexnar's voice replied. A section of wall slid open, revealing a doorway. Commander Vexnar entered alone, unarmed. He was larger than the other Krezok, with darker scales and more battle scars. He moved with the confidence of a predator who had never known defeat. Remarkable, Vexnar said, looking at the humans and their improvised weapons. In just days, you've adapted to this environment, captured my hunters, and forced me to negotiate. No species has ever done this before. We want to go home, Dan said firmly, and we want your promise that you'll leave Earth alone. You are in no position to make demands, Vexnar said, but his tone was respectful rather than threatening. We have 2 of your people, Dan reminded him, and we've shown we can defeat more. Vexnar made a sound that might have been laughter. True, but my ship could destroy your entire town from orbit. Then why haven't you? Dr. Brown asked. Why capture a few of us instead of attacking in force? The Krezok are hunters, not conquerors, Vexnar explained. We seek worthy opponents to test our skills. When we found Earth, we expected weak prey. Instead, we found... He paused, searching for the right word. Equals. On Earth, the situation was changing rapidly. The military had detected a smaller, alien craft descending from the larger ship in orbit. Fighter jets scrambled to intercept. It's heading for Pine Ridge, Major Lane told Deputy Laura. Get everyone to the shelters. Wait, Laura said, looking at her sensor glasses. It's not attacking, it's landing outside town. And it's not trying to hide. Military vehicles surrounded the landing site as the small Krezok craft touched down. Its door opened and a single figure emerged. A human. My name is Dr. Kevin Monroe, the man announced. I was taken 3 days ago from Chicago. I've been sent to deliver a message. Dr. Monroe was quickly brought to the command tent where he faced Major Lane, Deputy Laura, and Dr. Ryan. They're called the Krasok, Dr. Monroe explained. They're hunters who travel the galaxy looking for challenging prey. They've never encountered a species like humans before, physically weaker, but adaptable and creative. Why did they send you back? Major Lane asked. Because something unprecedented has happened on their ship, Dr. Monroe said. Some of their captives have not only survived the hunt, but have captured Krasok hunters. Their commander wants to talk. Talk about what? Laura asked. An exchange, Dr. Monroe replied. Knowledge and technology instead of conflict. They've begun to see humans not as prey, but as potential allies. 3 days later, a historic meeting took place in a neutral location, a large military base in the desert. On one side stood Earth's representatives, military leaders, scientists, and government officials. Among them were Deputy Laura Collins and Major Peter Lane, who had been at the center of Earth's first contact with the aliens. On the other side stood Commander Vexnar and 5 Krasok officers, including the recently released Hunt Master Grex. Between them were the 4 humans, who had been captured and had successfully fought back: Sheriff Dan Miller, Dr. Edward Brown, Betty Young, and Sam Cooper. You have shown courage and intelligence beyond any species we have encountered, Vexnar said, his voice translated by a device Dr. Ryan had helped develop. The Krasok respect strength. We came to hunt you, but we stay to learn from you. The President's representative, a woman named Kate Wilson, stepped forward. Earth is not a hunting ground, she said firmly. Our people are not prey. We understand this now, Vexnar replied with a slight bow of his head. That is why I propose an alliance instead of a hunt. Sheriff Dan looked skeptical. You kidnapped us, put us in a fake forest, and hunted us for sport. Why should we trust you now? Vexnar turned his yellow eyes to Dan. Because you earned our respect, Sheriff. For 1,000 years, the Krasok have traveled the stars finding only prey or predators. You humans are neither. You are builders, thinkers, creators. When faced with superior strength, you use your minds. When faced with advanced technology, you adapt and overcome. Dr. Brown spoke up. During my time on your ship, I saw technology that could help Earth in many ways. Medical devices that could cure diseases, energy sources that don't pollute. Is sharing these technologies part of your proposed alliance? It is, Vexnar confirmed. In exchange for access to Earth as a rest place for our ships and hunters, not to hunt humans, he added quickly, but to learn from you and to hunt only in uninhabited areas with your permission. The negotiations continued for hours. By the end, a preliminary agreement had been reached. The Krasok would share certain technologies with Earth. They would be allowed limited access to uninhabited regions for hunting non-human animals, and most importantly, a cultural exchange program would begin, with humans visiting Krasok ships and Krasok visitors learning about Earth. 1 month later, Sheriff Dan Miller sat in his office in Pine Ridge, looking at a strange object on his desk. It was a gift from Hunt Master Grex, a small device that could translate any language in the galaxy. Next to it was a medal the President had given him for his role in the first contact. Deputy Laura knocked on his door. Still hard to believe, isn't it? She said, entering the office, that we're now allies with alien hunters? Dan smiled. Yeah, it's taking some getting used to. The town's changed, Laura noted. Tourism is up. Everyone wants to see where it all began. Dan nodded. Pine Ridge had become famous overnight. The small town was now a symbol of humanity's first step into a larger universe. At a military base nearby, Sam Cooper was working with Krasok hunters, teaching them about human tracking techniques while learning their advanced hunting methods. The young man had found his calling as a liaison between the two species. Betty Young had turned her garden into an experiment station, growing earth plants alongside seeds the Krasok had brought from other worlds. Her tomatoes were now famous, across 2 species. Dr. Edward Brown was perhaps the busiest of all. He worked with Krasok medical experts, studying their advanced healing technologies. Already they had made breakthroughs that promised to revolutionize human medicine. On the Krasok mothership, now in open orbit around Earth, Commander Vexnar stood before a gathering of his finest hunters. For generations, we have defined ourselves by the hunt, he told them. We measured our worth by the strength of our prey, but humans have taught us something new. True strength comes not just from physical power, but from adaptation, cooperation, and intelligence. Hunt Master Grex, standing at Vexnar's side, nodded in agreement. I was captured by beings half my size with no natural weapons. They used their environment, they worked together, they planned ahead. There is much we can learn from them. And much they can learn from us, Vexnar added. This alliance benefits both our peoples. The humans gain our technology and protection. We gain new hunting grounds and new perspectives. A young Krasok hunter raised her hand. Commander, if humans are not prey, what are they to us now? Vexnar considered the question carefully. They are partners, he said finally. Different from us in body, but similar in spirit. They hunt in their own way, not with claws and strength, but with minds and tools. In some ways, they are the finest hunters we have ever encountered. Back on Earth, night fell over Pine Ridge. Sheriff Dan Miller stood on the porch of his house, looking up at the stars. Among them was the bright light of the Krasok ship, visible, now that it no longer hid itself. His phone rang. It was Dr. Monroe from Chicago, the man who had been the messenger between the species. Sheriff, I just got word. The council approved it. You're invited to join the first human delegation to visit the Krasok homeworld. Dan smiled. From sheriff of a small town to ambassador to an alien world. Life had certainly taken an unexpected turn. I'll be ready, he said. As he hung up, Dan thought about how quickly everything had changed. Just weeks ago, the Krasok had seen humans as nothing but prey. Now they spoke of alliance and respect. The Galactic hunters had feared nothing until they encountered Earthlings, not because humans were stronger or more advanced, but because humans showed them a different kind of strength, the strength of ingenuity, cooperation, and an unbreakable will to survive. The Krasok had come to hunt. They stayed to learn. And in that change lay the promise of a new future for both species, a future where former predator and prey walked together as equals among the stars.